Hi, friends, it's Michelle, and I'm here to follow up on a topic I mentioned in the last video that I was going to share a bit of my story about how I became a stay-at-home mother and the journey that brought me to where I am now. And my hope for this video is that I can encourage thoughtful discussion with you and your family and perhaps give you some things that you can pray about and think about and seek counsel about. And yeah, I really hope that you did enjoy the last video that we made, and that even though I didn't get many comments on the YouTube, at least it might have sparked some discussion with you and your family and your loved ones, and gave you something to think and pray about. And yeah, I'm just encouraged to know that some of you out there are watching, and I hope to bring up some things that would be worth discussing about in your own home. So, just a little bit about my story. I grew up in a family where my parents were immigrants from Vietnam. Do you want to join my video?
Okay.
I'm making a video about stay-at-home mom, so I can get it done.
It's in progress.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to say much, but I'm here.
Okay, you can read your book while I share it. Okay. Okay. Yay! It's Stephen Ramsey. Anyway, so I grew up with an immigrant home. My parents were boat people from Vietnam, and they sacrificed a lot. They left their families and had to start from scratch and were refugees. And yeah, it's just things were a lot different if you were an immigrant in the 70s. It's not as it's not as what it is today. Yeah, just the loneliness and not knowing where to connect and having to work really hard to make something out of yourself, make something for yourself and your family. Yeah, it was, from what I knew, it was really hard. So naturally, we were the children of the sacrifices that they made. It seemed natural that they would have high expectations that the next generation would carry out the hopes and dreams that they had of coming to Canada in the first place, which includes having a better job and more possessions. So growing up, we were encouraged to pursue a career in medicine, primarily. Doctor, dentist. My mom primarily wanted me to become a dentist so that we can become our own boss. When I say our, I do have a twin sister. Yes, I have one sister, and we were both encouraged to become dentists and to be our own boss. And I think I think it was out of my parents' best intention that they really want us to have a better life, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we get to enjoy the blessings of living in Canada. So I did end up going to university, and we were able to apply for a loan. I'm thankful that I was able to get a loan and apply for low-income grants and be able to go to university without having to, start from scratch myself. And I also just wanted to add a bit of my background is that, I was raised by a single mother for half of my childhood. So I think another aspect of getting a career was also just kind of that extra insurance of not having to depend on another person in case life doesn't turn out the way you expect it, such as losing that nuclear family and having somebody that, yeah, so being able to be self-sufficient was another aspect of the encouragement to get a career. Um, yeah, so I think looking back, I don't really remember family life, like future family plans, as being anything that was encouraged growing up. Is mostly career. Um, you know, finish school, get good grades, get into university, and then get your career so that you can, say that you do this or that. And I don't look down on anyone who has aspirations for career, but I also um, face challenges on how to reconcile that with the other priorities that I have in my life right now. Yeah, so to continue my career story, um, I chose to go to nursing school in my third year at UBC for very practical and pragmatic reasons, as well as my values at that time. I just wanted to balance my mom's expectations of doing something in the medical field while still like having a interest in learning about um, psychology and sociology and understanding how to care for human beings and wanting to be part of in a caring profession, and also my curiosity in um, caring for people who are suffering. And just, yeah, I was only 18, 19, 20, and wanting to get some life experience. And I would have to say that my life outside of school up to that point was, I didn't have much life experience outside of what I already outside of school life at that time. Um, and that's another down downside of, I guess, my educational experience was the lack of life experience that I needed to obtain now. And yeah, and I also, during that time of university, I did have jobs that I really did enjoy, and they just happened to be at home. I was working with a boy with autism on the side and just doing some tutoring. And yeah, I knew in myself at that time that I enjoyed being at home, I enjoyed being at other people's home, and I love doing detail oriented work. And I'm very analytical by nature, and I like doing hands on creative stuff. Um, yeah, so back to the educational aspect. I think the question that most university students have, that parents or other people around them ask, is like, what are you going to do with your educational degree? Like, what kind of, like, the question is, what kind of job are you going to get? And before anything actually has happened yet. And the other question is that I had in my mind was, how am I going to pay off that loan that I just borrowed to even get that education in the first place? Um, so I think nursing school really appealed to me because I can tell people I'm going to be a nurse and this is how I'm going to pay it off. I'm going to go work in a hospital or something, and I'll get those. Yeah, I can ensure that that education in a pragmatic sense would allow me to have the skills to get that career, and to get that career to pay off that debt, and then also gain life experience and see if that was the career that I wanted to do long term. Um, Originally in my nursing school application, I had big dreams. When I say big dreams, I mean like at that time as a single person, I had dreams of starting a nursing school in a foreign country and to help those who are not as fortunate and maybe pursue missionary work. I mean, when you're single and your life hasn't really started, it just seems like you could do anything, right? So that was what I wrote in my application. And I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but that was um, some dreams I had at that point. And it was also around the same time that in my early 20s, which I will also include more in a testimony in the future, so I was acknowledging my God given desire to become a wife one day and to also become a mother one day. And I was also hoping that, well, since I'm in school right now, that nursing school would provide me some good life experience and skills that would bless my future husband and children. I also knew that accumulating a student loan debt would get in the way of my focus for having a future family, in the sense that I wouldn't be blessing my future husband in his ability to provide by accumulating a loan. I know not everyone would agree with me on that, but it was just knowing that I would desire to be maybe a stay-at-home mother one day. It just didn't make sense that I would have a loan brought into the marriage, so I knew I had to pay that off before I would consider getting into a relationship or getting married. Um, yeah, I do remember at one point somebody asking me, um, Michelle, if you were to get married and your husband wanted you to let go of your career, would you do it? And at that time, I was just in university in the first couple years, and I thought, hmm, I think I would happily let it go. And it was all theoretical at that time, but I just thought, wow, like all this um, education that I'm working for right now, I could end up like letting it go. Like, am I willing to let it go if my husband asked me to? So I mean, that was a question in my mind during that nursing school period as well. Um, yeah. So my mother was very adamant that I keep 2 feet, one in my career and one in my future family. Um, there was great fear instilled in me about losing my career, or at least she was just warning me, like, about the concern of losing my career and not being able to provide for myself, just in case something were to happen. Let's say if my husband were to die or leave me. Um, yeah, so my thought in that is that I understand that that being poor is a very difficult thing to go through. But if I could choose between being poor and compromising my values or my faith, I think I would rather be poor and suffer for doing well. And also, as a Christian, we know that God provides, right? Um, but yes, I did have women in my life that encouraged me to keep a stay in practice as a nurse, just in case I am needed to help provide financially, help my husband to provide for the family. And I think at that time, it did make sense to hold on to the career just in case I needed it. Um, and I think there are a handful of people in my life that would remind me, like, that seems like a wise thing to do. So I can respect that advice on a financial point of view. Um, but yeah, so yeah, while dating Steven, I made sure to ask what his views are about stay-at-home moms or even stay-at-home wives. And fortunately, he did have some positive views as he grew up with a mother that stayed at home and he was open to the idea. Um, yeah, and I also went around asking people who are stay-at-home mothers who are also RNs, and I did ask them, like, what did they do during that season of life when they had little ones. And sorry, let me rephrase. I talked to people who did stay at home while they had children, and returned to their RN careers later on. And I asked them what they did and whether they had any regrets about staying at home in the season of being a young mother. And I think the general consensus from these women that I asked were they were encouraging me to hold on to my career as much as I could in case I needed it, because once you leave, it's harder to go back. So they're just warning, like if I really wanted to practice as an RN later down the road, to try to like make it work. So examples of people that I observed that did keep their careers while having young children were some families who chose to work night shifts, and their husbands would work during the day and then the wife would work at night, and then somehow they would take turns taking care of the children, I guess, and that way there's always a parent at home. A couple of families that I met, that I talked to who did that. The problem that I had with that was that though it seemed like it made sense in a career point of view, I I figured if I was gonna get married, I think I want to see my spouse sometimes, and also raise our children together. So I was starting to question, like, how am I gonna make this work? Is it possible? Is it worth it? Um, I I had talked to people who decided to just stop practicing during the little years of raising children, and then later on they returned to practice, but it was not easy to start over again in a sense, and it made it very difficult for them to compete for jobs after being out of practice for many years. So I think the yeah the encouragement that I had from these women were to keep the career. Yeah, so yeah, my instincts though, and also after studying what I knew from the Bible, I felt like my instincts after getting married was that I had a desire to primarily be my husband's helper, and I just questioned like, how is me like working full time while Steven's working full time gonna allow me to be his helper? Is it just like for financial gain? And at that time, after we got married, I was working in a managerial position at a care home, and I felt very torn. Um, just not feeling present at home when I did get home, and my work was always on my mind. I was thinking about how do I do an excellent job at work while being doing an excellent job at home. I felt guilty that I was giving 100% at work, even more than that, because I was thinking about work outside of work hours too. I felt like I couldn't keep up, but and then it just didn't seem fair to give Steven leftovers when I got home. Yeah, it's this is not this is not what I signed up for when I got married. I really wanted to be present for Steven and not just be working away and dealing with both of us dealing with our own work battles and living parallel lives, and then getting home and feeling exhausted and too tired to serve one another. I don't know if work is the blame for that. I mean, I think I could have had a better attitude about that, but like, I think Stephen really just wanted us to trial and see like how life would be like if we were both working. And also like he was working. What kind of job were you working that made you feel like it was really important for me to work? Was
Well, at that point, I was at a Wellington church doing some global ministries work and IT work at the same time. It's very entry level, so yeah.
Right. So I tried to submit. It wasn't easy. But yeah, because my instinct was like, I just want to make a home. I'm going to make this the best home I can make it. Well, it's already 20 minutes. Sorry. And I just didn't have the energy because I was at a care home trying to make it the best care home I could. And also I really wanted to be open to children, and I just felt like I don't know when God's going to allow us to have children, but like I just knew that my time in this kind of career lifestyle is going to be over soon. um, or at least they would be constantly competing with my priorities at home. Um, yeah, I definitely experience pushback from even like people at work who are um, encouraging me to hold off having children until my career was settled. And yeah, I didn't agree with that, and we could probably save that for another video. Our thoughts on children and what God has to say about that. But yeah, so moving on, I guess. Yeah, so I after giving birth to Joanna, I did end up reducing my hours and then eventually working in home care, and I think slowly trying to wean off the career side of me, but still trying to gain enough hours so that I can keep my RN. We took the mat leave, and then after Joanna was 1, we decided that I would work once a week, and then eventually we tried maybe 2 or 3 times a week, just to see if I can get work benefits, like because Stephen was starting to look into being self-employed. So it was my in-laws that would be watching Joanna when I was away at work, so that Stephen could work. And yeah, I definitely struggled every time I went to work. I felt so guilty because I just wanted to be with my kid, and I felt like it was my job to take care of my daughter, and it it was a strange feeling. Like I would talk to other nurses who would explain to me, "Oh yeah, it's kind of weird, like that we leave our own children so we can take care of somebody else's child, just so we can get a paycheck." And anyway, there are many topics that I wrestle about this issue that I will continue on. Um, yeah, so it was when I was pregnant with our second child, Claire, that I started looking more into the possibility of whether I should let go of my RN completely. Um, and it was up for renewal soon. So, yeah, I just wanted to run through my grid of like my working out work thoughts and like questions that I had and how I came to terms. So, I'm just going to run through it for your benefit. Um, and I encourage you to also write down, if you're wrestling through the same topic, to maybe write down, pros and cons and things that you want to seek God about, and your conclusions. How does God answer you? And yeah, so my initial thoughts here, I thought, what will others think? How do I respond to their comments or questions or worries? What do I do with the voices of the culture or the voices in my head or the voices of people close to me who question my decision? So I, I decided that my response would be to not worry about the opinions of others and not worry about those people who disagree, and not to compare my life to other people's lives, people who've chosen differently. And I need to be obedient to please Christ, even if it means being looked down by others, and to live by my biblical convictions, to do what God expects of me and not what the world or other Christians even expect of me. I also need to focus on my husband's leadership. He's my God-given authority and my head in the situation, and not be led astray by what other people have to say. And also, I was reminded that my identity and security isn't in my career or what the culture says about me as a woman or wife or mother, but my identity is in Christ and abiding in the Word of God. Um, yeah, what does the Bible have to say about women in the home? Um, Verses that I have looked to include, the Titus 2 woman. I'm just gonna look that up here. Yeah, um, yeah, Titus chapter 2. But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine. And then it talks about older men, and then verse 3 talks about older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self controlled, pure, working at home, kind and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. So I think that was a priority for me. Like, it emphasizes that we should be working in the home, and I love how it ties in like the character traits of this woman, the older woman, that she should carry herself out in the ways that the word of God wouldn't be reviled. So I really desire to be obedient to Christ, and also to bear testimony to what it means to trust God and to be faithful to um, these callings. Another question is it selfish that I want to stay at home? That's something I ask myself. And I have concluded it is not a selfish decision, it is self sacrificing. A quote I came across was, "Some people have a strong desire to raise their own children, and that choice needs to be respected, especially when they're willing to sacrifice income, opportunities, and lifestyle." I think sometimes people have the wrong perception that if you're staying at home, you're just staying at home doing nothing or just doing whatever you please. And I don't think that is the case, um, or it doesn't have to be the case. Um, yeah, it's it's a choice that I think it's a valid choice that a woman who is married gets to make. Not all women get to make it, but if they can, I think it's a worthy decision to make. Okay, another concern I had was worries of the future. Will I regret this decision of letting go of my career or my RN license? And what gives me comfort is to trust in the Lord and His plans, and to focus on obeying Him no matter what the cost is. Um, I had some advice um, from another RN. I don't really remember writing this down, but it says, the person said, if you stay home with children and realize you made a mistake, you can always go back to work. But if you go to work and realize you made a mistake, you can never get the early years back. That's something we're thinking about. Um, so I wrote here, I rather regret losing my career than regret not being faithful to God to love my husband and children well in this especially busy season of life. I can choose not to regret my decision to let go of this job too, and be glad I made a wise decision for my family. So I did write a whole bunch of things for a case for choosing to be busy at home and becoming a stay-at-home wife. Um, yeah, so the main thing was obedience to God in the season of life, and also the ability to focus and have flexibility and availability. And, you know, getting ready for a work shift does require a lot of my time to get ready for the next day and also arrange for babysitting and also recovering after all that organization. So um, yeah, I think being a stay-at-home wife or mother, you're offering the gift of availability. Um, if your husband needs you to go run an errand or do something while he's at work, you can get it done. Or if you have a neighbor in need or somebody who needs your attention, like your children, you can you can be available. I think that's a gift that you can offer if you choose to stay at home. Um, there's also the gift of influence. Being at stay at home means I get to be the primary influencer of my children's developing minds. That is definitely a privilege, um, to get to be the primary role model at home for our children. And I think for me, um, just knowing how busy and fast paced life can be, I think one of my motivations to stay at home is just to buy more time, because this time will pass and I have so much to learn still. And I think just how do you, I mean, the question that I have is how do you get better at a job if you're not like there? I think you learn by doing. And like if I try to escape my responsibility at home to just because it's difficult and do something else that I'm like a lot better at, for some people it's work. Work does end up becoming an escape for some women, rightly so, because being at home is just really hard. But for me, my understanding is if if I stay home and try to work at improving my skill in the home, and I want to be able to pass on skills to my daughters, and I want it to be a lot easier for them to be at home in the future if they choose that path, that they will have the skills, um, that are needed to manage a household. And I think you can only learn by doing. So I just want to buy as much time as I can to learn those skills and be at home. Um, yeah, and I wrote here it's inevitable for the season of child rearing to that to have to come to this decision about work. I wrote here realistically, it's not possible to do both outside work and home work with excellence as my responsibilities increase. It's inevitable I will need to quit my job. Also, this decision is inevitable if I plan to homeschool and have more children. I know I can't do it all. It's a matter of when this happens, really. So I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not saying that you have to quit your job, but just knowing the path that we've we've decided on in terms of um, wanting to pursue excellence in our roles. For me at home, um, and knowing that as we have children, our responsibility will increase. Um, I knew I was reaching a crossroads, that I had to make a choice about this career. Um, yeah, because staying in practice as an RN, I do have to do continuing education as well, and learn new skills and gain experience, and that does take time away from the home. Um, I wrote here the nice thing is I get a choice. I wrote here a lot of working moms um, find this an enviable position to be to get to choose to be a stay-at-home mother. I guess what I mean is some moms don't get to choose to stay at home, and for me to get to think about this choice is really a privilege. So I'm in a fortunate enough position to get to make the decision to stay at home, and this decision gets to be mine. As far as I can tell, I'm the first generation of women in my family to. Sorry, I'm reading a quote. This is not what I'm saying. Okay, the quote is, I was in a fortunate position to be able to make the decision to stay home, and the decision was mine alone. As far as I can tell, I am the first generation of women in my family to truly have this choice, and it's incredibly empowering. It's thought provoking to think we get to choose. Um, yeah, and also the next thing I wrote down here is the blessing of children. So, staying at home, you get to experience the blessing of your own children and learn from them by being with them. Um, and then the last thing I wrote here is stewardship. Um, yeah, saving energy to not have to prepare for my shift and having more time for other meaningful activities, having more energy to spend time with my husband, support him in his work, try new hobbies that can bless my home. Yeah, and then other questions I had here is about being a stay-at-home mom. Being a stay-at-home mom is hard work. How will I make sure I get a break from it all and get personal time with the Lord? Um, yeah, because I think people who do have jobs outside of the home and are moms see work as kind of a break from their daily daily grind at home. So the question is, if I were to stay at home full time, how would I get that break? So here, rely on the Lord, communicate with Stephen and my family members, and take advantage of downtimes. For example, teaching Joanna to have a quiet time, and then working on the discipline of rising early and sleeping early. Something I need to work on still. Question: what if I get bored? I think a lot of moms that I've met just think they'll be bored at home, or they do complain of being bored at home. To be honest, I don't think I'll get bored. I I think my tendency is to get overwhelmed. I feel like there's just so much to do and so much things to learn. So like I don't get bored at home. There's just too much to do. Um, I hear moms also saying, but I need adult interaction. That's why I need to go to work. Um, Perhaps I don't need it as much. I have Steven working at home, and but yeah, I wrote here I can take opportunities to reach out to other moms and neighbors and show hospitality to church friends and unchurched friends and volunteer and read books or go on YouTube. Anyway, um, yeah, adult interaction. I think so far since I made this decision a couple of years ago, I haven't really suffered from the lack of adult interaction. We host small group once a week. Um, I can go on the phone if I need to talk to somebody. Um, we go out. There's a drop in for moms and kids nearby that I stop by as needed. Otherwise, I'm quite content um, in my home, and also very happy when adults who are available can come visit us. And I guess that fulfills my desire for adult interaction. Yeah, I don't mind being with our kids for the most part. Yeah. Question. Next question. finances, preparing for rainy days or seasons, unexpected circumstances. So for now, I wrote this a couple years ago. I wrote, Stephen's able to, and willing right now to provide. The Lord will guide us on how to steward the resources He's given us. We should also be wise to live within our own means. Can you share with us how God has provided since I quit my job? Do you remember what happened to your income?
Yeah, I'm thankful to say that. I mean, we're not super wealthy family or anything, but the Lord has provided to the extent that we're able to more than get by at this point. Even though we're renting in a basement, my income has gone up, um, basically enough to fill in the gap from when Michelle's working. And yeah, we still save money each month, while affording our rent and groceries, but we still try to also make sacrifices to make sure we're not overly spending a lot of money. We're not buying new iPhones every year. We're not paying for cable television. We're trying to keep basic with a lot of costs. But I'm thankful to say that the Lord has provided, and it just seems like as after Michelle left her job, my income was able to go up over time, to a good amount, so that we feel secure at this point, with just me working and Michelle not working, and not working for money, I should say, since she's always working in the home here, and I couldn't afford the to pay her if I had to give her an hourly rate for the work that she does and raising our kids and taking care of the home here and being an awesome wife. So yeah, I'm pretty thankful.
All I could say is God is faithful. He's shown His faithfulness to us, and yeah, I guess, yeah, I do remember thinking, wow, like I quit and God increased your income. I don't know what to say. It's like, um, I felt God's blessing in that. We both felt God's blessing in that path.
And that was through a lot of hard circumstances that didn't make sense at the time. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So praise God. The next question was that I had regarding my decision was, what was the point of a university education? Was it a waste? And I wrote here, I can still use my college education and work experience in different contexts. It did provide me valuable life experience. And I would have to say, at that point in my life, I was being obedient to my mother and the Lord as much as I knew. And I was using my single years as best as I knew how to at that time. So I don't think there's any point in living life regretting my best attempt to obey God at that time. And yeah, I think we enter into different seasons where we have to make different decisions for our lives. And for me, I just can't live my life feeling enslaved to a career. It's just, I don't think that's how we should live life, feeling like I have to keep this, um, if God's calling me somewhere else. So the main part is obey. Obey the Lord. Um, Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but God is faithful. Next question. What will I do when I'm done raising kids? I think it's a funny question that, like, you gotta keep your career, or else, like, when you're done raising kids, you don't know what to do with yourself if you let go of your career. I feel like I have a lot of things to do already outside of my career. So, primarily, it's being obedient to God and being my husband's helper and being available for what other plans that God has for me. I don't think that career will be like the determining purpose of my life. Like, if I don't have a career, then I have no purpose. Um, I think God has, well, God already says that He has prepared us for the good works that He wants us to walk in. I'm kind of paraphrasing Ephesians 2, verse 10. Um, I admittedly, I do have many dreams that are actually outside of nursing, and I wasn't really able to articulate that until after I left nursing, I think. Um, yeah, so 2 years have passed and since I wrote this document, and yeah, I have many dreams of how I can be using the skills that God gives me to bless others, and perhaps I can go more into that later. Yeah, but next question that I had was, how do I view my career going forward? Do I look back or do I move forward and not look back? What about keeping your foot in the door? I admit at that time of making the decision, I was concerned of my mother's voice creeping in. I think parents have a huge influence in their children's life because in this case, my mother's voice was in my head about keeping both feet in keeping both feet in career and family. And my response at this point was, I wish I could go forward happily and not look back. I tend to worry about the future and want to somehow be prepared, but I need to be present with the Lord's calling for me today too. Um, yeah, I definitely had to reach that crossroads when the time when Stephen finally gave me the okay to um, leave nursing. I remember being quite paralyzed with fear, like, what about the future? What if something happens? What if I made the wrong decision? Um, yeah, what if something happens and I need to go back to work and I don't have it and I don't have my RN? And what gave me comfort was reading Matthew chapter 6 again about how God does care and provide. And yeah, Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So I just wanted to trust God again and through that decision and move forward. Um, Next concern, kids socialize in daycare and get to make friends with get to make friends with people their own age. That's a good point. I know that many parents are concerned about their children's socialization, especially in their younger years. Um, I wrote here, I can be intentional to meet regularly with other children, as well as getting out to meet family and other people in the neighborhood, so my children have interaction with people of all ages. I can also have people over to my home as well. I think my views have changed a little bit since I wrote this. I, yeah, a child only gets to be a child for like so many years, and I'm of the mindset that a child's first relationship needs to be like the foundation. Um, yeah, they need to know. Yeah, I think a child needs their parent. I know lots of people don't like to hear that, but I think God, God made you as a parent um, to guide your children, and I think He will use whatever you've gone through and your shortcomings and your strengths to shepherd this child. And I think there's something special about the little years that there's a reason why kids will run to their mom and dad when they don't feel safe because you were their safe place. And I feel like, especially in the early years, 0 to 5, the best person for them to have a relationship with, what they really need is you, the parent. And I'm not saying like that we should live isolated lives outside a community. That's definitely not the life that I live, but I think there's nothing wrong with just being at home and enjoying your kids, like having them to enjoy your presence and enjoy that family time that you can never take back once it's over. Um, and yeah, to be in community, that's important for adults too. And I think as an adult pursues community, um, and they include their children in their community, they will naturally make relationships with people of all ages. I'm not as concerned about children having to make friends with younger peers necessarily at that young age anyway. Another great question that I had was, how about my Christian witness? Like, because when you go to work, you're with interacting with maybe an unbelieving person, and you wouldn't have the opportunity unless you went out to work and left your children with somebody else. Um, my response is, living in a bubble is a choice. I can still have opportunities to witness if I am a stay-at-home wife or mother. Um, so ultimately, I need to be faithful to the Lord and pray for opportunities to witness, and God will provide. I must not need to compromise my God-given role to fulfill ministry responsibilities. Also, think about your Christian witness to your children. I feel like there's this false perception that if you're taking care of your family, that it's somehow like a selfish thing or not of eternal value as going out there and ministering to other people who don't know Jesus. Your children need to know Jesus too, and they also will observe your life. And I don't think that staying at home, being a stay-at-home mother or wife, means that you just stay at home and you don't talk to anyone else. So stay-at-home moms, you need to go out and get out and be with other people too, and bring your kids with you. Not saying you have to follow my prescription or anything. I'm just encouraging the other moms who are in the stay-at-home lifestyle and questioning whether their work is of eternal value. I, 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 I think that God sees and God knows, and He can allow you to be fruitful in your ministry in the home as well. And there, yeah, use your home as a place of ministry and hospitality to those who don't know Jesus, and include them in your family life as well. I wrote here, is there benefit in the season to pursue outside work or activities? And if so, at what capacity? I think the concern for stay-at-home moms is like, how do I stimulate, other giftings in my, so that other parts of my brain are being used. And at this point, the response 2 years ago was, I was expecting my second child at the time anyway, so, and I was busy with trying to end my career in nursing. So my decision at that time 2 years ago was to finish well with my job, to have a thankful attitude that I had opportunity to serve others in that capacity, and to then hand my resignation letter ASAP. Um, I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to even consider this option. And when people ask me, like, do you work? I know what they're asking. Do you have like a job that pays money, and do you get outside the house other than being with your kids? Maybe that's what they're asking. Maybe I'm wrong. I usually respond, yes, I do work. Just in the home. I serve my husband and my children, and this is my career now that my daughter's entering kindergarten. We are starting homeschooling. So I've explained to people, like, yeah, I'm not going back to RN career, just because I have a career ahead of me already. I have homeschooling, and we are open to more children in the future. So um, I do foresee a career ahead of me, and in raising our family for the Lord. And if God allows me to have, to be an empty nester one day, I do desire to bless the next generation, Lord willing, through continuing to help my husband in whatever work or ministry um, opportunities that he has. But also, if my I just want to bless my children with the gift of availability. So if they are, married and are raising their own grandkids, I love to like be there to support them, cook meals. I would love to be a support to other young moms who need somebody who's been there, done that. So right now, for me, I feel like this is training ground to become that older woman that's mentioned in Titus 2. So I trust that as I seek God and be faithful in this season, I trust that He is faithful and will lead and provide. And um, Lord willing, I might do some kind of work that does profit in terms of making income one day. But right now, I don't necessarily feel the pressure or the necessity to have to do that. I'm thankful um, that instead of trying to work to make a profit, that I can instead work to um, better my skills and being faithful in the capacities that God has given me to be a wife and mother. So always improving and learning, and by God's grace, resting more so that I can take care of myself, so I can be refreshed and continue working, doing God's work at home. So I guess in response to like what my mother had raised me up on, um, I am thankful. I am thankful that she taught me um, to be wise and careful with my steps and to consider the consequences of my decision. I don't necessarily agree with her encouragement to hold on to both career and work, career and home, just because my vision for home is not merely just providing um, food on the table, um, like just the basic necessities, but also I want to be present in, um, investing in my children's lives as a homeschool mom now. Um, and the reality is, my mom did stay at home for the first 10 years of my life. And though I didn't appreciate that as at that time, I remember when I was around 10 asking my mom, "Can you just go back to work? You should go back to work. You don't need to stay home." My underlying motivation was I just want my mom to work so that I can have more money so that we can spend it on stuff and get more stuff, right? I wasn't I wasn't content with what we had at that time, and I thought if mom worked, then we'd have more money to afford things. And yeah, I'm sad that I didn't have gratitude for my mom staying at home, but she was trying to protect me at that time. She didn't want to hand me off to another caregiver, and I think she was following her instincts. I would like to say they were God given instincts, just to be with her child and to make sure that we were raised properly. So, looking back, thank you, Mom. Thank you for sacrificing your career to that make sure that I was going to be okay. I think that is an honorable thing, and though she might regret not being able to go forward in her career and wanted me to make sure that I had my career. The funny thing is, I chose to let go of my career, and partially for similar motivations, but also just wanting to obey God and trusting Him. And yeah, so I hope this helps you. You might be wrestling through this right now and trying to understand what God has to say about this issue. Seek what He has to say, and I think it's pretty clear that God does affirm women working in the home, um, and also women having children, um, as God provides. Um, I think I'll have to make another video on the topic of children, but I, I want to encourage you to, yeah, stand firm in what you know to be what God has to say. So, good night. Thank you for listening.